This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome, childcare providers, to this peer-to-peer networking meeting with Childcare Resource and Referral. Really, we like to put on these peer-to-peer networking meetings to bring childcare providers together around a topic or just about whatever's going on in the world and in your programs right now. So we've been hearing from some providers that they have some questions about ERS assessments or QRS in general. So Jesse and I and our consultants thought that it would be a great topic for a peer-to-peer. So welcome. Thank you for taking an hour out today to be with us. If you want to watch the recording after this or share it with anyone, then we will send that out via email. Everyone hear me all right? I know Michelle had said, I don't know if she can hear me. Got it? Okay. All right, good, great, thank you. I hope you get it worked out, Michelle. All right, and I'll start with just a few housekeeping things. Some people use Zoom, some people use GoToMeeting, some people haven't had the opportunity to engage in virtual peer-to-peer meetings. So there are some buttons on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, and that will allow you to mute or unmute. So you can use those to interact today, but we do ask that you remain muted to minimize any background noise unless you're speaking. And if you have anything to share, then you can go ahead and type that in the chat box and we will respond to you. And we can read the questions out to you as we go. I can kind of keep an eye on the chat box as we go, and we can answer questions that way. So I'll do my introduction first. If you don't know me, my name is Julie Davis, and I am a community development specialist for CCR&R here in Region 4. So really my job is just to work in the community to educate and advocate for quality childcare, what quality childcare looks like, recruitment and retention of childcare providers, old and new, and then also to give providers the opportunity to come together around topics for peer-to-peer networking meetings. And so I worked a little bit with Jesse and the ISU ERS staff to put this together. So Jesse, you're the QRS specialist. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jesse Morales, and I am the QRS specialist here for Childcare Resource and Referral in Region 4 in Central Iowa. So I'm excited to see all of you today, and looking forward to hearing more from our ISU assessment team.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Jesse. Jesse's kind of your go-to girl for QRS questions if you have any for Childcare Resource Referral. So go ahead and reach out to her at any time if you have any QRS questions. And then we are lucky to have the ISU ERS assessment staff on with us. So we have Melissa, Kristen, and Jamie. We can just have you introduce yourselves. You can just go down the line as it is on my screen. So Melissa, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Melissa Wagner. I think I've met most of you, which is great. I see a lot of familiar names. I'm not an assessor. I actually oversee the assessment team, but I more oversee the ERS training project at Iowa State. And I have been using these ERS tools for, I think, around, well, okay, since 2003. So math.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for being on with us. Kristen, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Chris Corrigan, and I am one of 2 assessors for the ERS in the state of Iowa.
Great. Thank you. And Jamie?
Hi, I'm Jamie. I am the other assessor here. Chris and I travel throughout the state to do observations for programs that are going for level 5. And we've both been here almost 8 years. So
awesome. And then either Kristen or Jamie or Melissa, who should I give the presenter role to so you can share your screen?
If you could give it to me, that'd be great. Thank you all.
Sure. All right, you should be able to share your screen now.
Oh, yes. Okay. And remember, I'm usually a Zoom person, so I gotta find all these new little gadgets here to figure this out. Okay. Let me widen this up. Okay, how are we doing there?
Great, we can see it.
Great. Move some things out of the way. Okay, so like you said, we were just asked to come together and share a little bit about the environment ready skill assessments. We've shared some of this stuff before, but just kind of some reminders about the process and kind of, I guess, a little bit about what was going on during the pandemic. So I have a few things to share and just to review, but then we really are just going to open it up to all of you and all of your questions. And I'm sure you have many, so we'll get to whatever you need that is beyond what I'm going to share here real quick. So of course, environment rating scales, we're all familiar with the 4 scales. We have the Eckers 3 and the Itters 3, and then the Vickers 3, which we just started training on in January of this year. And then we have the Sakers as well. And these are our current assessors. And of course, they just kind of did some little introductions, and they have at least 7 years of experience, almost 8. There's Chris Corrigan and Jamie Smith. And then we actually sometimes have Mary Hughes, as she's kind of a part-time assessor. She used to be an ERS instructor for us actually years ago and was retired. But she helps us out in kind of those spring, fall months to kind of fill in some needs so we don't get so backlogged during those really heavy periods of the year. And actually, I should probably let you all know too, I wasn't sure the audience for sure who was going to be here today, but Chris is actually going to be leaving us and is retiring here at the end of June.
That's exciting. Congratulations, Chris.
Exciting for Chris. We will miss her a lot. And we have hired somebody starting here next week, and her name is Bethany. So just be on the lookout to hear more about all of those changes. Just to review the steps to request an assessment, the program has to turn in their QRS application first. We still do get questions every once in a while with a program that they contact us, one of us individually, it seems like, and they want to request an assessment. And we look back and we're like, well, we haven't seen notice from Mickey yet. So then we're doing all this questioning. So they need to turn in that QRS application first. Michaela Robinson then sends the notice to CCR&R QRS specialist, and sometimes she CCs others, I've noticed, of when a program does meet enough points for a level 5 and is ready to receive that assessment. With that, and then once they receive that, CCR&R then notifies the program, and we have that form that we want the program to fill out. And if you aren't aware of the form, just let us know and contact us. But we want them to fill that out ahead of time before contacting us, so we can kind of get an idea of, is this a program that's going to require 8 assessments? Is it a program that's going to require 1 assessment? And start already kind of looking at some dates on the schedule. And then basically they contact ers@iastate.edu, and they work with the assessor to set up a date or dates for their assessment. A few things about scheduling assessment. We always want to make sure that we're going to schedule this on a typical day and what we define as a typical day. And Chris and Jamie are very thorough at letting them know what we mean as a typical day. Things that don't apply as a typical day is if they're going on a field trip, if they're having some special party, holiday party, things like that, or a special visitor that they usually would not have, something that occurs less than once a month, then that's not going to be typical. A typical day still is, though, if it's raining, or if it's, if they have, say, a regular visit. I think Jamie was at a program, I think, that had a visit. The librarian came twice a week or something like that. So that would still be a regular part of their program. The program is allowed to provide some blackout dates. So say they know a lead teacher is taking a few days off next month. So they can take those, or if several of the lead teachers are taking a few days off to attend a conference or something, so they can use those as blackout dates. If the regular teacher isn't present, we typically don't count that as a typical day. They also give them a 3-hour time block. They work with the program to figure out, kind of see what the morning schedule is like, and then they offer some time blocks for them to when most children should be present, and it's the period in the morning with the most activity. So typically those time blocks are around 8:30, 11:30, give or take a few 15 minutes, half hour or so. The assessor gives the program lots of information. There's a confirmation letter once the date's set. They get the Ready, Set, Go brochure, and there's even a video they can access on our website about preparing for an assessment. They send them the social story, which Chris created, and it's kind of just a story for teachers to share with the children on that somebody's going to be visiting the program and what they're going to be doing. They aren't going to be playing, but they'll be, kind of hanging out in the background, just watching what they do, watching them wash their hands, watching them play with materials, maybe go outside if they go outside. It also talks a little bit about right now how they're going to be wearing a mask, and you may see them put on gloves and so forth. They also get a reminder approximately a week before the actual assessment, just to say, hey, remember, we're coming out, make sure these things are done. If some emergency comes up, here's my cell phone number to contact me on the day of. Sometimes there's things that do happen occasionally, and we do want them to contact us, especially in the winter. If, all of a sudden the program closes last minute due to bad weather, there's the assessor's cell phone number. The actual assessment day. In a center-based program, the classrooms are selected. It's just a random selection. It is literally pulling names out of a hat, basically. They will observe at least 1/3 of the total classrooms or sessions. So one teacher may teach an afternoon and a morning session, so that's 2. So we go by 1/3 of total classroom sessions, or you could even count it as groups. And then at least 1 using the ECHRS 3, IDRS 3, or SAKERS as applicable. They are only 3-hour observations, and there's only an interview now for the SAKERS. It's a long interview, but there's only an interview for the SAKERS now. After the assessment, the assessor writes the feedback report. It's always reviewed by a peer, or typically myself, and then it's sent to the program within 30 days. We typically try to do a 2-week turnaround. Not always possible, but that's what we kind of aim for. And then the scores, or this first page that you see here, that is what is sent to the QRS system. That's what they need for their actual scores to determine their final QRS rating. A few things just about what was occurring during the pandemic and is continuing some. There are no adjustments that were made for ERS. Of course, we didn't want to mess with the validity, reliability, and also those things on there are important indicators of quality. And so we didn't feel that should be adjusted. We always tell programs to focus on areas they can't control, and sometimes it takes a lot of creativity. And so unless Jamie and Chris have anything to add, if I missed anything big, what questions do you have for all of us?
Chris or Jamie, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think Melissa covered it all. The only thing I would add is in about the last 1.5 years, we have started giving programs an option of what time we come. We used to just say, okay, I'll be there about 8:30, but we've started giving them more of an option. So we arrive 15 minutes ahead of time so that we can, kind of get settled, find out, sometimes we're parking who knows where to get into the program. So just get settled, draw to see which classroom, and then ask those kind of beginning questions about age range and things like that. So they do have a little flexibility with that start time, but we, just remind them that it needs to be when everyone's awake and active as much as possible.
Right. Any providers out there have any questions or concerns when thinking about an ERS assessment, or anything they want to share about an experience they have for someone who hasn't maybe considered QRS before?
We always get lots of questions, so I'm surprised at how quiet everybody is. I do think one.
No, I was just gonna say I've had some programs curious about why there's an interview questions with the SAKERS tool, but not the other tools. Can you maybe address that for their understanding?
So when they started the revisions for the Eckers, Itters, and Vickers, that was kind of the goal, is to get rid of some of those interview questions for several reasons, and I'll try to recall all of them. A lot of times they found those interview questions, they didn't really tell us a lot in terms of quality and child outcomes. Secondly, they're finding some people would kind of prepare their answers ahead of time, they felt like there's just a lot of pressure on the teachers to answer in a sense correctly, or even be able to recall certain things that I think sometimes when a teacher is being interviewed, they're just nervous, and it may be something the program does, but they just couldn't recall it just because of the situation they're in. So that was some of the main reasons why they got rid of the interview questions. And there isn't with the SAKERS, because the SAKERS has not been redone to a third revision. It's been updated, but it's not in a third revision like the Vickers, Itters, and Eckers. And unfortunately, I don't see that really coming, at least anytime soon.
Yeah, Thelma, who is the lead author on the SAKERS U, is in her 90s now. And one of the authors of the SAKERS has passed away. And the younger people at ERSI have not taken the interest in the SAKERS like they should. So who knows when there'll be another update or revision to the SAKERS. So that's just a little background information about why the update hasn't been done. Their focus is on early childhood, not school age programming.
Thanks for that, Chris. There is a question in the chat box from Beth. She said that you referred to a lot of questions for the SAKERS. Do you go through all of the questions listed?
All the example questions in the book is what I'm guessing you're referring to, Beth. No, just kind of like we did with previous, like all the R revisions. There's all these sample questions, but based on what was observed, questions are kind of picked and chosen through to help determine scores or finish out scoring rather than.
And when I do an interview, I usually ask the director for a copy of the health and safety handbooks, because there are 3 or 4 questions on there, as you all know, that are covered by licensing in the state of Iowa. So if I can just review the handbook and just check those off, then it saves time during the interview. But the interview, if you're going to be doing a SAKERS U assessment, count on at least a half an hour, because there are several questions that are asked.
And then Heidi asks, have you heard when the ITERS 3 big book might be published?
All we know is they're working on it. And honestly, I think they're able to work on it more just due to the situation last year and hopefully have been able to put more in than previously. But that also kind of put it at a hold a little bit too, because they rely on a lot of people using the ITERS 3 in the fields to get feedback and questions, so they know what to put in the ITERS 3. So I'm not quite sure exactly where they are in the process. I know they're really working on it, but like I said, nobody's using it, or not using it much anyways, to get the feedback that they typically get.
Oh, Beth asks, what are the most common downfalls in programs?
Let Chris or Jamie see if they could. I'm trying to think of.
I'm not sure if there's any one thing. I guess with the ITERS 3, sometimes if I'm observing a 2-year-old classroom, they tend to be getting them ready for preschool, so there isn't that physical warmth and touch that you see in like an infant or a toddler program. So often they might lose points on that particular item. Those 2-year-olds still need a lot of hugging and holding and sitting on laps, and so I guess that's one thing I'd see. And although this year, in the past, personal care routines have been problematic for a lot of centers. But this year, because of COVID, I believe, they've, most of the centers I've been to have done a much better job on hand washing and personal care in general.
While we're talking about the ITERS, I would add, I just observed a program recently that, and especially right now, programs are running very low or they're very short staffed. So a lot of times in those ITERS classrooms, if there's just one teacher, they may still be talking and having conversations, but they're doing so much routine care that they get that time to have those interactions with play. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind. I think the interaction pieces, the language, were kind of a big shift for a lot of programs, especially if you were used to the ECRS-R and ITERS-R, where you're used to us coming in and going through materials and counting and that kind of thing. And it's really a lot different with the third version. So I think some of those, math talk, kind of some of those, they take a lot of practice. Programs write little notes around the classroom about, oh, you can ask this, or, open-ended questions to ask. Seems to help, especially when you're being watched. It's not easy having somebody watching your job. So sometimes I see those little reminders to be helpful.
Absolutely. And like you just said, Jamie, it is natural to be nervous to have someone come in and check out your program. So I'm sure that's something that most programs kind of deal with. But, that's why we wanted to all come together today, too, to let you know that we're here for you. And also the assessment staff is here for you. I mean, ultimately, we all want to see all childcare providers succeed and provide the best quality that we can. So either Jamie or Melissa or Chris, what would be your best advice for a program preparing for their first assessment? Like, what would be some things that they could do to help best prepare themselves for you guys to come in?
Well, I would say take the training class.
Yep.
and work with CCR&R to help you prepare.
Right.
Mhm. And I think kind of piggybacking on of what we were just talking about, it's hard to prepare teachers. I've been there for us coming, but I guarantee you, we are not traveling all over the state and spending nights away from home to come into your program and be like, oh, haha, you didn't make it. This is what we love doing. You know, we're in the same boat, like Julie said, about we want programs to be the best and we want to help them. So hopefully we can kind of relay that so teachers aren't so nervous. But yeah, I think like Chris said, working with CCR&R, having people come in when you can. Obviously the last year and a half been different, but having some different people come in and observe kind of helps prepare them for that.
Yeah, and I would just echo what Jamie said. We really want programs to be successful. I personally feel very bad when a program doesn't get a level 5. And sometimes it's a quality program, and they miss it because maybe they didn't have the time, enough time for center time or some other silly reason. But yeah, we really want programs to be successful.
Great, thanks, ladies. So Jennifer asks, what about if an outside visitor, like a zoo visitor, for an example, and having children having to stop center time because of something specific like that? Would that pull away from the uninterrupted play time?
Yes, so we kind of, this kind of goes back to that whole scheduling on a typical day. We want to schedule when you don't have, you know, somebody from the zoo there or the librarian or a parent who comes in and reads to the children. Now, if that's something you do every week, if you have a zoo visitor every week and that really is typical for you, then that's a different story and we can kind of discuss that. But yeah, if you have, you know, something like that where you're taking away from that free play time in their interest centers, we have to count that against that hour that's required. Just like say children are having free play and the teacher pulls 3 of them over to do a math activity. Well, that math activity may be cool, but it's still taking away from that free play time. So you just kind of have to keep that in mind. Now, the big difference there is if this is, you know, a child is stepping away from free play to get speech therapy or work with a physical therapist for a few, you know, 20 minutes or something, that's different. Those kind of issues are different. But yeah, it really relates to that typical day and really looking at your schedule and saying, okay, the zoo's in this day, so let's use that as one of our blackout dates.
So Jamie, what if the activity is taken into the center and the children are invited to join, but not made to do that activity?
So okay, let me see if I have the question right here. So are you asking that you know, say during free play, a teacher sits down and starts doing a math activity and children come join on their own? Then that wouldn't count. We would really look closely at that for those math interactions and things. But if it's a required, it's your day, you come sit with me during small group, that's different because that's not their free choice to come. That's not part of free play.
I hope that answers your question, Jennifer. If it doesn't, just keep on coming in the chat box and we'll do our best to keep going around about it. Okay, she says good. And then Shirley was asking, so what might you tell a program that's nervous about going for their level 5? I mean, other than that you want them to succeed, maybe they're, you know, nervous about how much work it might be or how much time it might take. So what are some of those things you use to kind of try to get providers to go for that level 5?
Sorry, I just realized my camera wasn't on for the last. I actually was just in a program this morning, and the director said, you know, we've had turnover, and the last, I was like, well, how have you been doing the last year and a half? And she said, you know, I tell them every time, it's a learning experience. You know, this is for us to learn and grow, and you know, I think that really helps teachers if they don't feel like we have to get this or else, or you know, I'm a terrible person, or you know, anything like that. And I also kind of, you know, Chris and I talk a lot of times, but what do you have to lose? It's free. We come out there for free. It doesn't cost anything. You get some feedback. So what's the worst that's going to happen?
I think it's sometimes too, it's not just us, the way we present it, but the way we count on CCR&R and even directors on how you present this to your staff. And again, how you can teach it, keep it open as a learning experience. I think we've noticed those programs that we go into, when they see it more as a learning experience, they're like, okay, what am I going to get from this? You know, how can I use this feedback? And when you can kind of tell they're a little bit more relaxed. And also I think sometimes when they've been through it once and then they can see how they've used that feedback, and that feedback has helped up not only the children, but also it helps the teacher during their day. And when they can kind of see that full circle of things, it's not just going to benefit the children, but it's going to end up benefiting me in my day. It's going to benefit, you know, our program as a whole. It's going to benefit the families we work with. Sometimes seeing that full circle and just that we're doing everything we can to provide higher quality care for, you know, those best practices to children out there.
Great, thanks, Melissa. Anybody else have any questions or?
I was going to say, I know some of you work closely with programs going for ERS, so I was just curious if there's anything you do to help programs through that process and kind of, I mean, they get really nervous, but is there anything that you have found that is helpful for them to kind of just keep going? It is a lot of work. Childcare is a lot of work in general. So does anybody have anything that they have found to be really successful when they've worked with the program?
I guess for me, there's at least 2, if not 3 visits to each classroom or home that's going to have the possibility. You know, it's that kind of understanding how much they actually know about the tool and kind of giving them information in layers so they're not too overwhelmed or lots of times it'll include looking at their environment and helping them understand some of the whys behind the pieces. I think the conversation stuff that's now in the 3s, you know, definitely bumps everything up to another level. So I know there's that one book, I think it's called Big Questions for Small Minds or something like that by Nacy. I think that book, at least for Eckers for sure, kind of helps see the progression of how you can move it from a small conversation to a bigger conversation, so it's not just yes or no. That's all I can think of right now.
Thanks for sharing that, Beth.
I do like that Beth just kind of touched on, sharing those resources, and that there are other trainings out there that have really helped these programs along the way with ERS without them really relating it directly to ERS or an indicator. So if we're doing these best practices, whether they took some math training or whether they just took, frankly, if they took essentials, there's some things there that are going to help them in their in ERS. If they participate in what is now Passport to Early Childhood, what was previously NSO, there are some things in there that are going to be stepping stones to ERS practices. So ERS isn't just something that was thought of out of the blue. There's lots of different things that connect to it. Iowa Learning Standards, if anybody uses that, there are things in there that connect. There's curriculum that connects with ERS. So sometimes it might be helpful by seeing what they already do and know and use, and how can this connect, sometimes seeing like how that connects to ERS, and then that kind of gets them like, aha, this isn't all brand new. We are doing this, or, we are working on this. It just, the tool can be so overwhelming that I think sometimes it's hard to see those kind of aha moments or those connections.
Yeah, and I like that you touch on that too, Melissa. I know when I was a preschool teacher myself, it felt like that, it was like you're already doing a lot of those things naturally that you don't realize can actually count towards that, the actual assessment of high quality care. And like Chris said earlier, there are a lot of programs that do have, a lot of high quality care, but it's just kind of lining it up with the tool and the assessment and kind of making it all work together.
I do have a question about individual expression in art. And it's only because I came across a note that I wrote to myself, but I didn't put all the information in my note. So I wrote individual expression, select subject matter of art or the medium used or both, and they get to do it. So should I have put that the child gets to select the matter, the subject matter? Or is it that the teacher, yeah, so am I thinking this right by my note to myself? That's what I want to know.
Beth, you're on the right page, because I know I can kind of remember this conversation with you, actually. So individualized expression for art is really the child is making the choice. So the teacher might put, the teacher's already making some choice by only offering so many materials or whatever material is accessible. But it's not individualized if the teacher's saying, here, we're all going to color turkeys, make turkeys today or something. You can use brown, orange, red crayon. You kind of go back to, again, what is art? And then remember that it's the child's, this is the child's experience, this is the child's piece of artwork, not somebody else's. And for it to be art, from that child. Does that make sense, Beth?
Yes, it does. It's something, you know how things go through my brain too fast. There was a good thought. I'll bring it back. Let me think about it a minute.
Jesse, do you have anything you want to add or anything that you see when answering questions from programs around QRS?
I would say that a lot of programs have really commented how they like that Ready, Set, Go brochure, and that has been incredibly helpful. And so we really try and showcase that. I know you guys send that out, but really showing that to them as well. And, we get a wide range of programs, some who don't think they need to even take the training and they're good to go for an assessment, and others who really hone in on those tools for a long time before they'll even submit their application. So I think it's kind of everybody's just all over the place with how they prepare and maybe what they think they need to do to prepare. And so really meeting everybody where they're at. I agree with Beth, and like a lot of it seems overwhelming. So we really try to break those things down into manageable steps, and that looks different for each program, but really trying to figure out how we can help the programs to see a lot of this really is embedded within what you're already doing, but to help point that out to them. And so really observing them and being able to point things out, but also, like Beth mentioned too, what parts of the tool are they familiar with, and what parts of that tool does it feel like they are pretty knowledgeable about and feel like they are successful in, and then building from there to kind of go to the places where maybe they struggle a little bit more. Programs have also really commented on they like getting that report at the end. Like Jamie had said, you know, what do you have to lose? We have a lot of programs that have the points to go for a 5, but they don't want to try. So just having that conversation with them that it is a learning opportunity, and it's a chance for you to have, you know, these experts come in and to really look at your environment with you and to learn a lot from that process. And if you're going to go for the 4 anyways, why not try for the 5? Because worst case you get the 4, but you get all this wonderful information that can really help benefit your program as well. And so I think much like what Melissa had commented on, I think a lot of it is all in how we present it and how that conversation goes with programs and how that's framed for everybody. And so I think those are things that we're always looking for, maybe different responses to the yeah, but, or I don't want to try. And so just trying to get creative and answering those different yeah buts in different ways, just to kind of encourage people to at least try. It doesn't hurt to try, and you know, the feedback is beneficial no matter what your score ends up being. So
Great. I love that advice, Jessie. Thanks. Anybody else have any questions or comments before we wrap up for the day?
Let's see.
All right, well, my contact information is up on the screen. My email and my phone number are up there in case you need anything from me. A lot of times, like we've been saying this whole time, work with Child Care Resource and Referral and work with your assessors to become successful with QRS, but you can always reach out to me as well at any time, and I can try to answer your question or at least connect you with someone who can. So after this meeting is done, I can send out the recording as well as some resources so you can look back at what we have talked about today and lean on us, lean on your consultant, lean on Jessie for QRS. Come to me if you have anything. Really, we just want to reiterate again that, you know, we don't want this to be a scary process or overwhelming at all. We really want everyone to be successful. We all do. And that's really just our jobs, is to be passionate about the wonderful care that you provide to children and how you can become better and grow and learn and all of that. So we appreciate you being here and taking this hour out of your day. Heidi's asking if we can send out the Ready, Set, Go brochure. I can absolutely get that from Melissa or Chris or Jamie after the meeting, and I can send that in with my follow-up email as well. So if there's nothing else, everyone, again, I appreciate your time today. And we have another peer-to-peer meeting next Wednesday with the Iowa Department of Public Health. So if you have not sent me your RSVP for that, I like to just collect all the names. And then I usually send out the link the week or the day of. So that is nice for you all to be able to attend that as well if you can. And then also the Essential T-shirt shop is open again. So if you need a link to order for yourself or offer for any of your staff members, that is also open. Melissa, thanks for putting some of those things in the chat box. If you're still on, you can open those and I'll grab the link too out of there, and that way I can send that in my follow-up email. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Jesse and our ERS staff for being on with us and being available for providers to ask questions. So we'll see you at the next peer-to-peer.
Thank you.
Thank you.